Hi, I'm Lyndsey O'Connell, and I'm the Communications Director at Voice. And in this interview, we're drawing powerful connections between the work of Harrison Gardner and the mission of Voice. A teacher, author, and TV presenter, Harrison isn't just about the cool DIY. He's empowering local people and communities. For Harrison, it's not just about the sound of hammering nails, it's about breaking down societal boundaries and producing less waste in the process. Our ethos here at Voice aligns really well with Harrison's can-do spirit. We're envisioning a world where our conscious consumption and production are producing less waste can lead the way.
I first heard of you, and I think same as many people, through the television series that you did in RTE. And for anybody who hasn't seen it, get on the player. It's an amazing watch. And the one thing that I got from it for every single episode was how inspiring your can-do message really is, you know. And I really want to get into your book and the school that you set up. But there is this burning question that keeps coming back to me that I really want to ask you. And that is how a young fella from East Australia ends up with a school in the Burn and makes his way all the way across the world. Can you tell us a little bit about when you were younger and what that did to influence your journey on the way here?
Yeah, sure. I was lucky enough to grow up in a house that was under construction while we were living in it, you know, which is very possible in Australia because we don't get a lot of rain and the winters are pretty mild. And my parents were building the house and really just doing it as they earned the money as they went along. So they got this big shell up and we were living in that, and there weren't walls for a lot of the time. I had curtains up to create a bedroom for me when it first started. And I didn't mind it at the time, but I didn't appreciate it at the time the way I appreciate it now. And I think what that gave me was this understanding of how buildings work and how structures work and what a home actually is, what makes a home a home. And it's not the paint on the walls, and it's not the finish between rooms or anything like that, but it's what you do with the space, and it's how you live in the space, and it's the feeling that space gives you. I left Australia as soon as I could. I left Australia 2 days after my final exams at school, and I went to Kenya, and I spent a year in Kenya working in villages in Kenya and with different NGO organizations over there, and had a great time. Went over there with the intention to share some of my building skills. I had been working in construction on weekends and after school for the last few years of high school as well, and I learned so much from them. You know, I didn't teach them a thing. I just learned so much from them about how innovative you need to be when you're presented with limited materials. You know, my experience of building has always been that I had the world at my fingertips and I had as many materials as I needed to create anything. And then I was suddenly in a village in Kenya having to create a building out of literally whatever we could find around us. And it was a great experience. And I went back to Australia, felt some reverse culture shock very, very quickly when I got back, and then just left again and ended up in India for 2 more years doing much of the same work. And then just kept going. And so I was on the road for 10 years in the end, going from country to country, practicing, learning different building techniques, sharing whatever I could and helping people out wherever I could, but always just kind of gathering skills and different ways of creating structure. And it wasn't something that I was consciously like, I'm trying to get this holistic view of building. It was actually just what I was interested in. It's what I kept getting drawn to, and I kept trying to do other things. And I even did a very short course in marketing at one point, thinking that I needed to do something, that would give me some security. But none of it really stuck. And building's the thing that I kept coming back to. And you know, 10 years of traveling around the world and working for several companies and working on several different continents, I was passing through Ireland and I met some really great people. And it was right after the recession in Ireland, you know, and this gang of people I met in Dublin were just so full of hope and so encouraging and so willing to take risks and support each other and fail and help each other up again. And they were just trying things out, and it was a really great community to be a part of. And so I found that I kept coming back to Ireland after. I was still doing jobs around the world, but I kept coming back to Ireland. And after about a year and a half, I bought a old ruin in West Clare, which is now our family home. But at the time, it was just a little project. It was another skill that I got to learn. It was another place where I got to learn this skill of working with stone and working with lime. By deconstructing parts of the building and renovating this building that had been there for 200 years. And coming from a country where there aren't any buildings that are 200 years old, it was incredible to me that like this building was not cared for, no one wanted it. It was basically came free with the piece of land we were buying. It was just a beautiful opportunity for me to try something new and practice. But I never knew I was going to stay here permanently until suddenly I had a partner and two gorgeous little kids and a school in the barn, like you say.
That's so funny, because we were having a little bit of a conversation amongst the staff here before speaking to you, and I think the leading consensus was that it was either surfing, or it was a Colleen who got you over here. So it's nice to actually have the backstory. One of the things that we focus on in Voice is the use of materials, and trying to link consumption and production with climate change, And I'd love to know, when you were on your travels on the way here, was there one culture or one type of people that in particular you thought just had it right in terms of using the materials around them, minimal waste?
Like my view on that is that necessity is kind of the thing that sparks us to be as innovative and as resourceful as possible. And so it was the communities who had the least who were the smartest with their materials, not because they really cared about the environment, but because that's what they had access to. And you see hints of that in other parts of the world and in other communities. But working in the slums in India, I learned more there than I've learned anywhere else in the world, because we were repurposing waste that other people were throwing out and turning it into buildings. And we were so creative and had to be challenging each other and bouncing ideas off each other and trying things out. We were experimental with it. And it was an incredible experience to lose any idea of what materials are, that materials fall into a certain category, or that they're products, or that there's something you need to buy. All we have is materials. We're surrounded by materials, whether they're trees or plants or garbage, like leftovers from other sites or other people's lives. They're all potential materials. They all have a value. They're all strong in certain ways. They're all thermal in certain ways. They might resist temperature. They might encourage it to pass through. And once you kind of break that barrier of materials being a certain product that's wrapped a certain way and has certain characteristics, and you understand that every material that we're surrounded by has these characteristics, and if we can just identify what their strength is, then we can find the place to use it and where it's beneficial to us.
That's amazing. We've been campaigning for a DRS since 2003, the deposit return scheme. It's come in since the 1st of February in Ireland, which we're very happy about. But our messaging behind that for such a long time, it's huge. It's huge. I can't wait to use it. I actually haven't had a go yet. I've got to go buy some cans.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
You're gonna have to get in line after all the politicians who were getting their photos using the machines as well.
All them flashing. But one of the things that we kept saying in our messaging was that it's the value of the can, right? So it doesn't have a value if you don't show people what it could be used for, how it could be used. But once you put a value onto something and you give it a value, then it becomes precious, and then it becomes something that people can use. So I find that really interesting. And I was looking up some statistics. I think construction and demolition accounts for a third of all the waste produced in the EU. And when you think of that, like it's crazy. But then I know building standards in Ireland are quite high, and so there's a kind of a conflict of interest there. When I know the first episode of your RTE series was it Grace and Robbie? Was the two? They brought me to tears, the two of them, because they tried hard. They got the message from the bank that they couldn't get their loan because they weren't using a contractor. And even if you're doing SEAI, you can't get the grants unless you use a contractor, or the most recent kind of vacant property grant. You have to finish the job within 6 to 9 months. And if you're doing it by yourself, there's no way you can do it. So it seems as if the system is somehow built to kind of put you off doing it by yourself. Do you find that?
I don't think it's as I don't think it's as driven as that anyone is trying to put anyone off doing it. I think we've got to remember that everyone's trying to achieve many things at the same time, right? The time frame on the derelict properties grant is a really interesting one, because self-builds do notoriously take a really long time to do. And having this grant in place and having a time limit on it, there's other motivations for why they want these houses achieved within a certain time, but they want to see the results and they want to put the fire under people, and that's a really good thing. If I could motivate people that I work with who are building their own houses in that way, that I had some deadline that could promise them like a certain reward if they got the work done in a certain time, I would use it as well, because we can do so much, and we can create these spaces, and people can build their own houses, and many people are using the Cree Conahue grant to build their own houses. They're not doing it with a contractor, and they're doing it with the time pressure, and it's working for them. They're getting it's not that it's impossible to build your house in that time, it's that you really have to commit to it. And it's not just doing it on the weekends and doing it in the evenings. It's potentially dropping down to 3 days a week to get the house done. And there's going to be a certain amount of sacrifice, but nothing's for free. And I think that's the trade-off with that grant and how it works. And overall, I think that grant's having a really positive impact on people and a really positive impact on the state of like the derelict houses and the vacant properties that we've got everywhere. I think it's getting everyone thinking in the right direction, that these houses can be saved and these properties can be saved, and that the government is putting value on that, and that they're showing how much they value these properties. That's huge, because that's half the battle. Before that grant came out, I was literally having to convince people that houses could be saved, that these properties could be brought back to life, and trying to use all kinds of arguments that that it's Ireland's heritage, and it's tied, the way that houses were built here before is part of the story of Ireland, and how things worked, and that these houses potentially can function so much better than the brand new house that we're going to build in its place, and that these natural materials will last so much longer than the brand new building we're going to put in place. And they've proven that, because they're sitting here for 200 years completely ignored and neglected. And I don't think there's another building material in the world, unlike the Irish stone, which can be completely ignored by people for centuries, and the building's still standing, and it's still doing its job, and it's still resisting the elements, because the people, the landowners and the farmers and the homeowners who built those houses literally used what was on the ground around them. They used the materials that they were surrounded by, which were totally in tune with the nature that they were going to be exposed to in the future. And it's such a gift that these buildings are still there and are still going. So sorry, I'm kind of ranting and leading away from your question a little bit there, but I think it's difficult. I think building your own house is a big commitment to make, and it's a tricky step for people to take, and no one should be taking it lightly. We should understand that it's a huge commitment. It's going to be a huge amount of work. There's going to be a certain amount of sacrifice. We're probably going to end up crying at some point, just like Grace and Robbie did. And that's actually just part of it. That's life. And building shelter is just part of life. It shouldn't really be something that's seen as a luxury or an option for people if they feel like, having a house, that they should have a house. We should be really actively making sure that we all get engaged in this process, and that our kids get engaged in this process, that teenagers believe that one day they will own a house, and that they'll have a space, and that they'll have a sense of security. Because right now kids are leaving school and they don't think they'll ever have a house. They don't believe they'll ever have housing security. And that emotional thing is so hard to come back from. You know, once you instill that culture in a generation of people, and it's probably going to be 2 or 3 generations of people who feel that way, it's so hard to break that cycle. And the way we spend our money and the things we value are going to change hugely based on that feeling that people are leaving school with right now. And I guess that's why I'm defending kind of the Cree Conahue grant in a way, because it's helping change that feeling around the state of derelict properties in Ireland and the value of vacant properties. And I think it's been a really useful tool for that.
Oh, that's a great. I see you're positive. I think you're the most positive person I've ever come across, which is lovely. You said something in your book, and it was an expression that you used, learned helplessness. And I think you're touching on it there when you're talking. And something that we deal with in Voice a lot is the planned obsolescence that is in, our products, like our phones. They're built to die in 2 years so that we have to replace them. And it struck a chord at me when you said, learned helplessness, because I feel like that was the human version of that, that if we're so focused on how we're taught in one specific thing, then we do become quite helpless in terms of, growing our own food and eating our own food. Or we have a campaign at the moment looking at textile waste, right? So a lot of people don't know how to mend their clothes anymore or make their own clothes. And it's that helplessness. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what you mean when you say it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, in the end, everything I talk about, the entire book is trying to challenge learned helplessness. You know, the whole TV show is trying to challenge this idea of learned helplessness, which is that we believe, for whatever reason, because we were told it growing up, or because society tells us that we can't do something, or because there's so many parameters like engineer reports and insurance documents and different things and bank mortgages, those things, the way society is structured, tell us that we're not meant to be building our own houses, where we shouldn't try to do these things. And it really, people need positive examples. They need success stories to see that people have challenged those systems, they've challenged those norms, they've challenged what their parents thought that they should become, and that they've done things that they otherwise weren't told were going to be possible for them, whether that's building their own house, or whether that's learning a new skill, or whether that's fixing their clothes. For a lot of people, they don't know how to use a sewing machine because there is a cultural feeling or emotion maybe around a sewing machine that's something that women do, or that's something that stay-at-home mothers do, that's not something that a teenage boy should be learning, because I should be aiming towards wearing a suit and tie, or whatever people are aiming for now, or learning, working in tech or something like that. And it's the reason we don't learn these skills is not because they're not useful, or not because we don't think we're going to need them, but because we have these shapes put around ourselves that we think we're meant to become, or that we're meant to turn into. We have this non-for-profit common knowledge where we teach skills, and we share skills and practical ways of fixing things, and the knowledge and everything around a lot of different techniques and skills. And most of the people who come to our Build School program are people who have been told their whole life that because of their gender, or their sexual orientation, or their body shape and size, or because of their financial, I guess, status, that they shouldn't be learning how to build. They don't need to learn how to build. Someone else will build their house for them, either because they need them to, or because that's a kind of lowly job and someone else should be doing that. And these people are coming to us in their 30s and 40s, freaking out, being like, why was I never given these skills? Why did I never learn how to fix a leaking tap under my house? Because now I'm waiting 8 weeks for a plumber to come out to fix something that I could learn to do in 4 hours. And the learned helplessness thing, it's really, in a way, it's so intangible, right? The problem is intangible because it is coming from everywhere all at once. And really what it comes down to is our belief in ourselves. Learned helplessness is what we believe that we can do, what we believe we're able of doing. And then we could look at that and we could look at the people around us as well. We could look at our family, or we could look at people who we think are like us, and we say, what can people like me do, or what can my family achieve? And we have a certain opinion about that. Like, my family's not the kind of family who invests in stock, or my family's not the kind of family who would build their own house. And then you can look at the whole country, and you can see how the country views itself. Like, what's the confidence of Ireland? Does Ireland actually believe in itself? Or does Ireland have a learned helplessness that it doesn't actually think we can do these things? And it's the exact same feeling, it's the same emotion, it's the same problem that we need to address, that it's okay to not do things, but it's not okay to not believe we could do it, or that we should try to do it, or that we should find out if we can do it. And the only way to really flex that, or test that, to stress test it, is to start doing some of these things, is to try and build your own house, is to try and repair a piece of clothing. And you will make mistakes, and it will go wrong. And that stitch, that thing, when you fix the crotch of your pants after they've broken, they will rip apart again the next time you like try to leap up some stairs. You know, it's just how it goes, and that's how we learn. And then we keep practicing. And because we lost this culture of passing down our skills and passing down the lessons we learn, we have to start again. And it's we're at the, I think the way that I see it on a big scale is that we're at this point where so many of these skills are almost actually gone. They're actually almost lost completely. And we're here just now to save them, to catch them before they go, to reincorporate them back into the zeitgeist, back into the way that we share things with our children and share things with our friends. And it's not too late, but we're so close to it being too late. And we need to start kind of re-injecting skills and knowledge and ideas and the value in people being able to do things for themselves. We need to see that as a valuable thing. We need to see independence and autonomy as a valuable thing, because the more that people can do for themselves, the less they rely on the whole, and the more they're able to give back to the whole. Right? The more people are feeling safe and secure in their own skills and needs and abilities, the more they're able to give to people who aren't feeling that security.
That is, so we have a campaign called Sick of Plastic, and what we're trying to do is get rid of all the plastic, unnecessary plastic from supermarkets and packaging and things like that. And time again, we'll come across people who are more mature than the average person, who would tell us that, of course, it was only sure back in the day we're using glass bottles that we would return, or it was only so recently in my lifetime that we never had any plastic on vegetables. And there's a certain amount of snobbery I always feel about, you know, in the future we fix everything, but sometimes actually we need to look back to the past in order to learn how to progress properly, you know, especially because disposables have come so common, you know, used only recently. What I love about your school is that you champion knowledge, and you use it as a way to fight against, you know, oppression and discrimination, especially against what's going on in the housing at the moment. And could you tell us a little bit about your school and the kind of people that go there, and maybe some of their stories, if you don't mind?
Yeah, of course. So Common Knowledge is a project that myself and Erin, my wife, and Fionn Kidney are the co-founder. We launched this project off the back of something that I was doing before, which was called Build School, which was me in an attempt to respond to all the people who were reaching out with me. I ran a course at my house and invited people to come and learn the fundamentals of building, because I wasn't going to go and build their houses for them. They all wanted to create these spaces. So I said, just come and I'll teach you everything you need to know to go and start trying to do this stuff yourself. And so that was the very first Build School. It was 8 people sitting around my breakfast table, and we spent every morning talking about the theory of either foundations or thermal flow, the way heat moves in and out of a building or whatever. And then in the afternoons, we went and used tools and practiced, and we built a structure. So those 8 people built a building from start to finish over that week as well in the afternoons. And they had a brilliant time, and they told a bunch of their friends, and I was just getting more and more emails doing it. So we ran 2 more courses, and then I had to hire friends to come and be instructors with me to be able to manage the amount of people. And then 2 years later, from all that growth, we launched Common Knowledge, and we've now bought this 50-acre site up in the Burren, where we are we've got over 40 programs listed right now for this year for different skills that we're teaching, different kind of ideas and concepts, all the way from building and making and kind of the building world of things to permaculture, how to grow your own food, how to raise your own animals. And now we've just launched a range of textile courses, which is introducing people to sewing machines and how to fix their own clothes, and the loom, how people can weave their own scarves, and learning these like traditional skills. And I really agree with what you said there, where we need to sometimes take stock of where we are, look at the problems that we've got, and jump back 30 or 40 or 50 years and just check that we took the right path from that point. Because we sometimes get stuck in a bit of inertia where we make a decision and we take a path in a certain direction, and then we keep creating band-aid solutions to the problems that arise as we go along that path. And that's fine, and it can work out okay, and often we're going to stick to that path as well. But every now and then, you know, we realize that these solutions, they're only really called solutions until the side effects of that solution are worse than the original problem we were trying to create. You know, we've got the old stone buildings, and we had a problem that the moisture was getting into them. The water was soaking through the walls. The winds in the west of Ireland were blowing rain literally through the walls. So we used this brilliant, innovative new material, cement, to plaster the outside of all of these stone buildings. And it was brilliant, and it worked amazingly well for 10 to 15 years, until suddenly all this moisture is getting trapped inside the building, because cement is just not an appropriate material to cover a stone in. And so we have this problem. So then we tried to rectify that by lining the inside of the house with plastic. That way all the water was just trapped inside the walls and not coming into our living space. And that worked brilliantly for about 3 years as well. And then suddenly we've got mold, and we've got damp, and asthma rates are going up, and all these side effects are coming from these band-aid solutions we're using to solve an individual problem. And in the end, it's because we're not looking at this stuff holistically. We're not considering how all of these problems are overlapped, and how the solutions are going to have repercussions across all of the ways that we live, not just on the problem that they're looking to solve. And I guess what we're trying to do at Common Knowledge is have one eye looking backwards at everything that we've done before and all the ways that we've done things before, and one eye looking forward as to what we need to be doing, the future we're trying to prepare for and create for ourselves, and how we can blend those things together. And so I love traditional skills. I have this old Irish cottage, but I'm not kind of what's the word? I'm not a traditionalist. I'm not a purist when it comes to like how we use these buildings. And I really believe that if they'd had access to concrete 100 years ago, they would have been using concrete 100 years ago. And I think it's our job to look at the lay of the land right now and look at what materials we have available to us. We've got access to everything we've ever done in the past, from lime mortars to building with stone to weaving willow baskets to fixing our clothes. We've got access to all those skills. We now also have 3D printers, and we're making clothes out of mushrooms, and we're doing all kinds of things here. And there's no need that those two things need to be in separate camps, right? We can blend all of this stuff together. We can just be present, be where we are, look around at what we have accessible, and see that there's a way to solve the problems that we have using a mixture of these materials, and trying to take into account the holistic effect of putting these things together and what it's going to do for us. And I guess that's kind of the story that we're trying to tell, and the way of thinking we're trying to instill with the people who come and spend time with us at Common Knowledge, is that every problem has a solution, and there's no rules as to where that solution comes from, or what it's made from, or how much it costs, right? Solutions don't cost money, right? Solutions are just ideas, and it's up to us to find the best way to implement them and the best way to incorporate them into our lives.
Yeah,
and so,
solutions, they come from resourcefulness, right? You've spoken about this before on a podcast I was listening to the other day, and you were talking about this idea of resourcefulness. And, you know, that's your ability to be able to find a solution to something. But where that comes from as well is confidence. So myself and my partner, we've been working on our house for 2 years, and it blew me away how unable I was to do anything at the very beginning. Like even putting up a shelf was just daunting, you know. So one of the first major house purchase I bought was electrician's pants, which
Uh-huh.
best thing ever. So many pockets. But the next thing was toolboxes for my 3 daughters. I believe you have 2 girls as well.
Do, yeah.
Yeah, nice. So 3 toolboxes, because I was like, how could I have gotten to this stage of my life, like you said earlier on, and I don't know these essential things in life. So I'm going to do by showing for them, you know, I'm not going to fail and I'm not going to be perfect at it, you know, but they know how to measure, they know the different types of screwdrivers and stuff like that. And that confidence then allows them to be more resourceful when they're older. So I love the fact that your school is doing that, you know, through knowledge. It's very
Yeah,
inspiring, you know.
and we're having to do it in the format we're doing it. We're having to do it in this official school format, and people are having to pay to come to it because none of these people got it when they were kids. Your daughters are never going to need to go to Common Knowledge. Hopefully, Common Knowledge won't even exist anymore by the time your daughters are coming to do it.
You're
In
some
that,
entrepreneur, aren't you?
no, but that's it. The point is not to create a great business. The point is to
Yeah.
change people's confidence and to deal with the fact that people are terrified of trying this stuff out. Like,
Yeah.
we're just trying to change the way that we share knowledge and skills. And we're doing it in the way that we're doing it at the moment because that's the only way that we could think of doing it. But my daughters won't ever need to go to Common Knowledge. Your daughters won't ever need to go to Common Knowledge because they're being surrounded by tools and building, and they've watched you build a house. That mine have watched me build a house. They believe that they can build a house. They don't need anyone to encourage them or show them a million great examples of how it can be done because they've seen it done. And you said you're going to fail with showing your daughters how to do it, but that's not the case, right? What you're teaching them is how to learn, right? Learning is just failing. That's all learning is. It's doing something wrong and then figuring out the right way to do it, and then doing it again in a better way, and then doing it again in a better way. There's
It just
no
doesn't feel like that when
failure.
you're plastering, you know, Harrison, because it is doing that again and doing that again.
Yeah, but I mean, you're getting better at it every time, and
Yeah.
it's also the point that you're trying to reach. You know, you've also got this opportunity to teach them about the idea of perfect and whether it's something to aspire to or not, or whether it's real or not.
Yes.
And that's up to you, you know, because you've got to change your own feeling of what does a wall look like?
Yeah.
How seamless does the plaster on this wall need to look like? Or is it okay if I can see a trowel mark? Is it okay if there's some evidence that I built this wall? And I think it probably is.
You talked before about motivations, and people have different motivations for doing DIY, whether it's financial or confidence building or proving that you are a man or whatever it is. So for me, definitely, it's financial, right? So my favorite thing to do is to pick a job that has to be done plastering, for example, get a quote, and then be appalled by the quote to such an extent I'll do it myself. And because it's not 100%, like there are some trail marks, and I call it a live wall. That
Mhm.
satisfaction from doing it yourself is worth way more than if it was a flat, beautiful straight line, you know, and changing that conversation in your own mind is key.
Yeah, but I mean, that's where this stuff is so much more than the end product, right? Because what you're creating there is a story, right?
Yeah.
Every time someone comes into your house, every time notices something, there's a story to be told there. And there might be something that your kids tell about you when you're not here anymore. That's like part of the stories of the things that you did. No one's telling the story of the parent who had their house built by a contractor for them and moved in and everything was ready to go. You know, that's not a story of how that house was created or how it came into being.
Mhm.
And the story of the things that we do and how we spend our time is the legacy we kind of leave, and it's what we're going to be remembered by, you know. And all my kids have are stories of me messing things up around our house, and different ways of that, things that I tried to do one way and they turned out a different way. But it takes about an hour for me to give someone a tour of our house because of all the mistakes I made. And that's great. Like that's part of the joy of giving it, is talking about all the experiences we had putting it together.
Yeah,
And
that's so
and I
true.
love that. I wouldn't
Yeah.
give it away.
We have a friends out and they're doing work, and they built their own house and strawberry beds. It's amazing. It's beautiful. But when I go in and say, oh my God, it's wonderful, my friend Lee will always point up into the corner. He goes, yeah, but I really messed up that corner over there, you know? It's like, no one can see that.
Yeah.
It's like the trail in the map. So when in Voice, we work a lot with communities, and we know the benefit that when we're talking about just transition, mitigating climate change. We're not going to be able to do any of that. You know, we're not going to be able to achieve a healthy planet if we don't have a healthy people. And this is why I think your values and the values of your school with your partners align so well with Voices. And I was just wondering, can you tell us a little bit, first of all, how old can a child be before they use a miter saw? And then secondly, what do you call it? Tell us about the community that's around you at the moment in your school and how important it is.
Yeah. The mitosaur, who knows, you know, probably like 8 years old realistically is around the age that I would be. I mean, that's how old I was when I learned how to drive. So I I think somewhere around there, operating heavy machinery, it falls into that category of the more we trust our kids to be responsible and to take care and to be aware of their actions, the sooner they're going to be able to do those things. You know, my daughter's about to turn 4, and she just blows me away with the things that she's ready to try and wanting to work out. And I was teaching her how to use a nail gun on the house like 2 days ago here, and it's just it's all about, it's the same process when I teach a 30-year-old how to use a nail gun. There is no difference. You know, I show them how to use it. I show them how it's dangerous. I show them what could go wrong. I tell them what to be careful of, and they try it. And it's shocking, exciting, and exhilarating. And that's it. And she believes that she'll be able to use that tool now, and she'll come back to it when she's ready to use it, and she'll try it. But look, I think the community is, for me, actually, it's something that I didn't realize the value of until we started the non-for-profit, until we created a real community, until we created almost a legitimate community around common knowledge and around this group of people who were trying to create their own homes, who were trying to find an alternative path to finding their housing security. We pulled all those people together and we said, look, there's hundreds of you. There are hundreds of you who are all in the same situation. Like, you're all here to advise each other, to give each other ideas, go and work on each other's projects, go and make mistakes with each other's houses and use each other's materials and help each other succeed. Because that's what it's all about. And that's how we make sure that common knowledge isn't needed forever, that we will slowly pass this on enough that we create a culture where it is totally normal for you to call me up, Lyndsey, and say, would you come and show me how to build a brick wall? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And I'll come and I'll show you how to build a meter of a brick wall. And then you can do the other 40 meters on your own without it. And then the next person will call you instead of calling me. Right. And that we can keep this culture and create this culture of passing knowledge and information and skill along, because I think this era of specialization that our parents were in and that we're in, where we become really good at one thing and we almost let go of every other aspect of our life that we may be meant to be good at, right? Instead of being generalists, we become specialists, where I'm a doctor, I'm a mechanic, I'm a nurse, or I'm a teacher, you know. And that's great, and it's important for us to train up in something and become good in something and have some value to give back to our communities. But there's certain things in our life which we shouldn't be handing over as specialities. And the ability to cook for ourselves, the ability to, or the knowledge to grow our own food, the knowledge of how to build our own house, like, these are the things that we need to survive as people. This is how we stay alive. It's how we've always stayed alive since the beginning. And we can't let those things fall into the category of, no, that's just someone else's speciality, because that's what leaves people in a state where they don't feel secure in their ability to survive, in their ability to be protected from the elements, or to have food to eat, or to be able to cook that food into something. And the more people who can start seeing the value in us upskilling again, in people learning how to do things, in people trying things and making mistakes, and the better we can create a culture that is encouraging, instead of trying to dissuade people from doing this kind of stuff, the healthier it's going to get as we go on. You know, for most people, when they share with their family or their friends that they're going to try and build their own house, they get laughed out of the room, right? They get ridiculed for trying to do something like this. And that is the worst thing. That undoes like anything that anyone learns when they come to common knowledge. Any of the confidence that we help give people can be undone so quickly when they go and tell their family that they're going to try and do something. And that's where that community is so important, that we're there to support each other and encourage each other, that, yeah, of course you can do this. And of course, it's not going to look like it does on Instagram, but who cares? You know, that's not the point.
I'm going to nickname, your new name for me is Harrison Can Do Gardner. That's it. You're just the can do person. It's so lovely speaking to you, and we love what you're doing. We're big fans of all the work that you're doing. Hopefully one day we might be able to get up to you and say hi. So I'm going to leave it there.
Cool.
Yeah. And so if you ever have anything that you want us to pass around, or if you have anything good, exciting going on, let us know, and we can help spread the word as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's nice talking to you.
You too. Enjoy the rest of your stay.
Will do. See
Bye.
ya.